They go out to the golf course, and we see them on the putting green, and they're both pretty good putters, right? We see them both sort of drop their putts, and they're having conversation. Again, Mr. Lawrence is coming up. He says, Tiger Woods is breaking down all kinds of barriers, just like Jackie Robinson. He says, I'm breaking down barriers at school. Like, I'm the first black kid to ever be on the debate team. And he's like, oh, really? I didn't know that, man. Congratulations. And it's either in this part or the next one is where they are talking, and Jack is sort of saying, like, I understand kind of what it's like to feel on the outside, like,
Yeah, I never felt accepted at a country club.
I never felt accepted at a country club like this. And Randall sort of looks at him like, okay, right? And he's like, what, bud? Like, what's going on, And I don't know if it's in this one or in the next one, but he said, Dad, like...
In the next scene, yeah.
In the next scene, still on the golf course or what have you, Jack says something to the effect that he doesn't see color. Like, I just see...
Well, Randall says, like, I think there's a difference in what we're trying to say.
Yeah.
Like, you're talking about how you never felt uncomfortable, or you never felt comfortable being on the course, and I would have not been allowed on the course at all.
Yeah.
And then that's when Jack says, like, with you, I see my son, I don't see color.
Yeah.
And Randall says, well, then you don't see me, Dad.
Right. This is the first time, like, so chronologically, this would be the first time that this conversation would have happened. But in the narrative of the show, outside of the monument of Vietnam, like, Jack sort of tells him again, like, I understand what it's like to feel like an outsider, right? And to come back from the war and people not be sort of received, et cetera. And I have to applaud him for attempting to find points of commonality. And I think what Randall was ultimately looking for is that, like, yes, but at the end of the day, you're never going to quite understand what it's like inside my skin.
Right.
Yeah.
He's looking for that acknowledgement that we were talking about last episode, where it's like, I don't need you to understand.
Right.
I need you to acknowledge that you can't understand.
Yeah. And so, like, there's also a conversation between, I don't know if this is at the end of this or not. When Jack and you guys are talking about, because Randall also asks him,
how come
stop
the dojo?
Stop going to the dojo, right? Like, he's like, because you didn't want to. You said you weren't into martial arts that much. He's like, yeah, but you don't let me stop soccer. You're not letting me stop this golf thing, but you let me stop that, right? And you're like, as an audience, as a black audience member, I was like, well, Jack, how are you going to answer this?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And even Jack, you see later on, goes to his wife.
Yeah.
And it's like, did we let that go too easily?
Yeah.
Was there something about it that made us
feel threatened?
Uncomfortable?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And like, wow, what an amazing and interesting conversation that you have to have with yourself parenting a black child and not being black. Like, and I applaud the show for showing it, right? Because these are things that you would have no reason to think about until you had to think about them. And I think it's just like the nature of the world. I had a friend of mine tell me one time, and we were on Army Wives at the time. He's like, why do you always talk about, black and white, dude? Like, why does everything that you say has to do, like, well, as a black man, as a black da-da-da-da? He's like, why can't we just be people? And I was like, dude, I see where you're coming from, and you're very, very sweet and very, very thoughtful, but I don't have a choice. And I think that's what it is. When you live in this world, right, as a minority, as a disenfranchised, I don't know exactly the word, marginalized person, you have to understand your perspective and the majority perspective, right? So women understand what it's like to live in a man's world, right? Because they make the rules. If you're black, you understand what it's like to live in a white world. If you are LGBTQ+, you understand what it's like to live in a heteronormative world because you have to. But unless you actively say to yourself, as somebody who is on top of that sort of hierarchy, I wonder what it must be like to be like this person. There's no reason for you to. Like, an empathy is a skill that is practiced. Like, you have to, like, actively engage, right? And so what I enjoyed about this is that, like, you see the Pearsons being like, oh, shit. Like, these are important questions and things that we have sort of, like, been blind to, that we gotta sort of come up with answers
I wrote that. I was like, you see two parents grappling with, what did I write? Yeah, with their responsibility in honoring.
Yeah.
Randall.
Right?
Yeah.
So a couple of things happened at the end of that episode, which are really cool in this storyline, is that Dad takes him back to school. He says to Mr. Lawrence, he's like, hey, man, if my son is coming to you with like big questions or something, I'd appreciate a heads up. I think it was a heads up or something.
Simple heads up to his parents.
Simple heads up. Got it. Right? In a very sort of like...
pointed way.
Yeah. Like, okay, sure, it's all simple. That. He goes, you know what? Why don't you come to the house? We'll have you and your wife over for dinner. And it's a challenge that's sort of being laid down in the midst of the invitation. He's like, yeah, I'll come. No problem, right? It's like, you want to do this? We can do this. And both men, you can see, have like, are sort of like digging their heels into the ground in the name of civility. Right? And then there's the part about talking to his son about the game of golf itself before we even get to it. He's like, listen, I missed out on this whole thing. But this is the sport where business and deals get made. And you are going to be an important man. So sometimes you have to play up to the level of competition. Sometimes you have to play down to the level of competition. But you need to know how to function within this milieu because this is where shit happens, right?
Which is an important thing, I think, to remember as we go through the other storylines in this episode. Like that sort of weaves into some of these other storylines. Yeah. That to me was a big like, I didn't see this coming.
Yeah. It was a big shock.
It was a big shock. I was like, I totally forgot about this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's a really beautiful, like, lesson that Dad is imparting on his child.
Totally.